Hello, 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 and welcome back, dear listener. We have finally returned from our extended absence, and we are raring to get started. I'm going to warn you in advance, next month we're doing something similar where we have to go away for about a week, maybe a week and a half to get some stuff done. But all of that's in the future and not really worth worrying about right now. So I'll thank you for your patience. But let's get started. Without further ado, we're going to be reading Slayers the Ruby Eye, Chapter 2, Part 3. Well, there they go again. At first I had thought the footsteps and the creaking of floors was my imagination. I was exhausted after all. I had laid there awake for most of the night, thinking things over, unable to sleep. What a lucky break that turned out to be. These footsteps weren't being made by people drunkenly stumbling their way back to their rooms after a heavy night's drinking. No, they sounded too poised, too precise. These were clearly the footsteps of people sneaking around in the middle of the night. Very distinctly trying not to sound like people sneaking around in the middle of the night. I slipped out of bed. Of course, I couldn't be sure that I was one being snuck up on, but I figured the chances were pretty good, so I might as well prepare. And the footsteps were coming closer. Great. Why am I always right? I grabbed my cloak from off the floor. What? Where do you think it would be? We've already had this conversation. Shut up. Anyway, I grabbed my cloak off the floor and tucked it under the bed sheets, forming it so it looked like a sleeping body. I made sure not to rustle the blankets too much, and keep my movements quiet and precise. Hesitation makes more noise than confidence. Often trying to be quiet makes you louder. In no time at all, the footsteps were right outside my doorway, and a second later, the door had been kicked in. A handful of silhouettes filed into my room, heading straight for my bed. They grabbed the blankets, pulled them back, and there was this hilarious moment when they realised the lump under the covers wasn't me. The silhouettes bumped into each other in their confusion, jumping up and down and cursing. Right here, you idiot! I said that out loud, didn't I? Oops. I immediately realised my mistake. Oh well, too late to do anything about it now. Besides, I'm not a complete idiot. The whole time I'd been standing there, I had been preparing. In fact, I had just finished chanting a spell. I held my hands together out in front of my chest, and began slowly to separate my palms. A glittering ball of light appeared between them. But this was no lighting spell. No, this is the real deal. This is a real fireball. The silhouettes turned towards me, but too late. I tossed the fireball into the room and rushed out into the corridor, slamming the door behind me. Of course I made extra sure to check that the corridor wasn't full of assassins. You really have zero faith in me, don't you? Oh yeah, where was I? Kaboom! It was a pretty serious explosion. Now, I don't mean to brag, but my fireballs are first rate, capable of melting steel with a direct hit.
Lena! What was that?
Gary shouted as he rushed from his room. Since he was a mercenary, he and I had a lot in common. Just like me, Gary was always armed and dressed for an emergency. Assassins? That one word was kind of enough to sum up the situation.
Did you get him?
I actually really don't know, I confessed. If the attack had come one day earlier, I wouldn't have hesitated, but sure enough, as soon as I spoke, the door to the room burst open, and a flood of silhouettes poured out, accompanied by the stench of burnt flesh. For fuck's sake. Gowry drew and struck with his sword in one single motion.
Well, that's one less.
A figure crumpled to its knees. Our newly visible foes were humans wielding swords, wearing simple armour with an army of trolls for backup. It didn't look good. Gary took down a second opponent. Unfortunately, trolls could tolerate both burns all over their bodies, and cuts from Gary's sword and still keep coming. They didn't seem like average ability trolls. These guys were polished. They'd clearly had some training. Gary, have you noticed anything unusual about these trolls?
I'm kind of busy here.
Gary's third opponent, however, was human, middle-aged and stocky.
So you're with the girl, are you, boy?
The man said, locking swords with Gary.
You're no amateur, that's for sure.
You're not too bad yourself, old man.
Old man? I like to think of it as years of experience.
The two leapt back simultaneously. The first troll that Gary had put down was getting back to his feet. That's regeneration for you. But it wasn't time to admire nature's wonders. We were thoroughly screwed. It seemed inevitable with Gary and the old man fighting. The trolls were going to turn their attention my way. Normally, I wouldn't be overly concerned, but right then, I didn't have the strength to defend myself against an entire army of fucking trolls. My magic was at its absolute weakest point right now. Now, normally, the fight would have been over the moment Gary rushed from his room asking, "Did you get him?" I would have answered, "Of course," and winked, and that would have been cute. And we'd both proceed to put the fire out in the room, cue the fat lady singing, all done, finished. But no, not right now. All I had managed to do was singe their clothes and hair a bit. I didn't have the strength to do any real magic. I mean, mind you, my sword skills aren't all that bad, and I might not be at Gary's level, but I have confidence with my abilities against human opponents. But if you can't cast magic, the only way to kill a troll is to lop its head off in a single stroke. I'm not the tallest of people, and even reaching their head might pose an issue. My best bet would be to trick them somehow. Hi boys, lovely weather we're having. A little bit toasty, right? The fact that the battlefield was a narrow corridor meant that the enemies couldn't attack all at once. They'll have to come in waves. That, at least, was good news.
Show me what you've got, boy.
Hollered the old man, obviously getting impatient to fight. What? The trolls froze in place. The old man suddenly seemed to be staring into nowhere. There was no spark of life in their eyes at all. It had to be a puppet spell. Puppetry is not a particularly difficult technique. Trolls and other simple-minded creatures fall prey to it pretty easily. Ordinarily, a puppetry spell is used on a single opponent, allowing a sorcerer to use his or her opponent as a tool for a specific amount of time. However, using it on all of the trolls and the old guy simultaneously? That's way beyond the capabilities of an average sorcerer. This particular practitioner has to possess a great power.
What's with them? Did you do this?
I fucking wish.
It is difficult to have a conversation in this inn when the other guests are causing such a ruckus.
A priest, unnoticed until now, had been standing quietly behind the trolls near the exit. He seemed friendly enough. I couldn't get a handle on his age. He looked both young and old at the same time. And his eyes, he kept both of them tightly shut. Usually priests wear white robes, possibly accented with violet or pale green, or a colour associated to their primary deity in his or her own congregation. But this guy's robes were this really deep dark red. Crimson? Maybe a puce? It was hard to tell in the dim light. To whom do we owe our thanks for rescuing us?